May 22, 1943. The mid-Atlantic was a gray expanse of cloud and sea, broken only by the dark silhouette of a German U-boat slicing through the waves. Lieutenant Commander William Drain, commanding officer of Composite Squadron 9, gripped the controls of his Grumman TBF Avenger and banked hard to starboard. Below him, U-569 began its desperate crash dive. Spray erupted from its ballast tanks as compressed air screamed into its chambers. Drain had seconds, maybe 90, before his target vanished beneath the surface. Dropping from 600 to 300 feet, he calculated his attack. Too soon, and his depth charges would miss. Too late, and his own aircraft could be caught in the blast. His radio man called out the range, while the turret gunner kept the sub's deck crew pinned down. Then, release. 2 depth charges tumbled into the Atlantic just aft of the conning tower. 4 seconds later, twin plumes of white water erupted skyward. The explosions tore through the submarine's hull, shattering compartments and lifting the stern partially clear of the ocean. Within moments, an oil slick spread wide across the waves. U-569 was doomed. Her commander ordered the crew to abandon ship. 47 men surfaced in life vests. 21 never made it out. As Drain's Avenger circled overhead, the Canadian destroyer HMCS St. Laurent moved in to rescue survivors. It was more than a victory. It was proof that a new kind of warfare had arrived. The aircraft that had just sunk U-569 had launched from USS Bogue, an escort carrier, one of the so-called baby Flattops, the Navy once dismissed as too slow, too small, and too fragile to matter. Yet this converted merchant vessel had just demonstrated the power to transform the Battle of the Atlantic. Only months earlier, Allied shipping had faced catastrophe. In March 1943 alone, Admiral Karl Dönitz's U-boats sank 82 merchant ships, 476,000 tons of vital cargo. In the brutal convoy battles around HX-229 and SC-122, 22 ships were lost in 4 days. Britain's lifeline across the ocean was near collapse. The black pit of the mid-Atlantic, beyond the reach of land-based aircraft, had become a slaughterhouse where U-boats hunted with impunity. To cover that deadly gap, President Franklin Roosevelt pushed through a radical idea: convert merchant ships into small carriers that could bring aircraft into the fight. The admirals scoffed. These ships would be too slow to flee, too lightly armed to fight, too small to carry enough planes to make a difference. But Roosevelt saw what they did not. The war in the Atlantic wasn't about massive fleet engagements. It was about endurance, patrol coverage, and presence. The first result was USS Long Island, commissioned in June 1941. She was little more than a cargo ship with a wooden flight deck bolted on top. Naval aviators called her a joke. The press dubbed her a baby flat top. But necessity overruled pride. The Navy needed eyes and weapons in the mid-Atlantic gap. By late 1942, the first purpose-converted escort carriers, built from merchant hulls at Seattle-Tacoma Shipbuilding, began rolling out. USS Bogue, commissioned in September 1942, was one of them. She displaced 390 tons, carried 21 aircraft, and crawled through the ocean at 18 knots. Her crew called her combustible, vulnerable, expendable, a grim acronym for CVE. But Bogue was about to change history. At first, her results were disappointing. In her early crossings, her aircraft flew ahead of convoys, searching for surfaced submarines. Each time they found one, the U-boat simply dove and waited. Critics claimed the escort carrier program was a failure. Then Admiral Ernest King changed everything. Inspired by British experiments, he ordered escort carriers to form hunter-killer groups, independent strike teams that would roam the Atlantic, guided by intelligence to hunt U-boats before they could strike. USS Bogue became the first of these groups. In May 1943, operating with 4 destroyers, Bogue began her patrols. Her aircraft attacked 5 submarines in a single day, crippling 2 and sinking U-569 outright. The hunter-killer doctrine was vindicated overnight. From then on, Bogue's group prowled the Atlantic, guided by decoded Enigma messages and high-frequency direction finders. On June 5th, her Avengers caught U-217 and a refueling submarine on the surface. Both went to the bottom. A week later, U-118 was destroyed. By the end of 1943, Bogue and her escorts had sunk 11 German submarines and 2 Japanese boats, earning a Presidential Unit citation. Their success sparked an explosion of production. Henry Kaiser's shipyards on the West Coast began mass-producing Casablanca-class escort carriers, built from the keel up using modular construction. Workers, many of them women, welded prefabricated sections together in assembly line fashion. By 1944, they were launching a new escort carrier every 7 days. The United States would eventually build 122 of these ships, more than 3/4 of all American carriers built during the war. As the hunter-killer groups spread across the Atlantic, the tide turned sharply. In March 1943, U-boats had sunk 82 ships. By May, Germany lost 41 submarines. Black May, Dönitz's crews called it. Entire wolf packs were wiped out by radar-equipped Avengers carrying depth charges and acoustic homing torpedoes. Even the refueling milk cow U-tankers were hunted down, strangling the U-boats' long-range operations. On May 24th, Dönitz ordered all U-boats to withdraw from the North Atlantic. The hunters had become the hunted. Escort carriers weren't just submarine killers, they became workhorses of the Allied war effort. They ferried aircraft to Europe, supported amphibious landings in North Africa and southern France, and trained thousands of new pilots. They even fought surface battles. In October 1944, 6 escort carriers of Taffy 3 faced the Japanese battleship Yamato and her escorts off Samar in the Philippines. Vastly outgunned, the tiny carriers launched every plane they had, many unarmed, and fought with a ferocity that convinced the Japanese admiral he was facing fleet carriers. He withdrew. 2 escort carriers, Gambier Bay and St. Lo, were lost, but the invasion was saved. Historians later called it the most gallant action in U.S. naval history. By war's end, escort carrier groups had sunk 53 German submarines and helped close the Atlantic lifeline that kept Britain alive. They shattered the myth of the invincible submarine and proved that mass production, persistence, and ingenuity could defeat even the deadliest underwater threat. From Roosevelt's vision to Kaiser's shipyards, from Drain's Avenger over U-569 to the desperate fight at Samar, the escort carriers proved that even the smallest ships could change the course of a global war. As one pilot from Composite Squadron 9 said years later, "We flew from a merchant ship with a flight deck nailed on top. We sank submarines that were supposed to be sinking us. The brass said we couldn't do it. We did it anyway."